Hi, it's Amar. Today we're going to talk about the four most common retirement withdrawal strategies, some pros and some cons. And all these strategies that are out there, you can Google them, but most of them, they don't allow you to maximize your withdrawals during your retirement. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So the first way that you would take money out of a retirement account is just a fixed dollar amount. So let's say you have $1 million in your IRA. And in that IRA, we're going to take $40,000 out per year. Now, you'll get pretty consistent withdrawals, so it's very simple to manage. You're going to automatically know what your withholdings are. But this approach doesn't protect against inflation, and that's a big downside I see. The other downside I see is that when investments go down and you're just taking that fixed dollar amount, you're increasing the percentage that you take out. And that could have, negative impacts. And then, on the flip side, you're not counting for inflation. So when you look at expenses and the expenses are going up and you're taking a fixed dollar amount, then you're not really adjusting for that. The next way is a fixed percentage. So we take that same $1 million IRA and we're going to say we're going to take 4% out per year. 1 year it's 40,000, 1 year it's 43, maybe it drops back down. The pool of money you're drawing from will never grow or shrink, but you're not going to also get consistent income. And so one of the things that I find with this is that it doesn't take into account like your health. While you're healthy, you want to be able to travel, you want to be able to golf, you want to be able to spend time with your grandchildren, you want to take trips, and you may want to spend more early on and reduce the amount that you take later in life. If you're taking a fixed percentage, it doesn't allow for that type of adjustment. The third way that I've seen is, and this one really gets under my skin, and essentially what people say is, I don't want to touch the principal of my money, so I'm only going to take the income, the dividends, the interest that it generates, and I'm going to live off of that. Well, that's not how life works. Your expenses are going to change. Like I talked about, the amount that you take out earlier on could be different than what you take out later in life. And the biggest factor here is longevity, right? We don't know how long we're going to live. So the idea of keeping your principal intact forever really doesn't make much sense unless you want to leave a certain legacy or the amount of income you can generate is less than what your needs are. Now, we look at this environment that we're in today, and we got to keep in mind total return equals interest and dividends plus growth. So we're only focused on one piece of that equation. And the environment today, that is quite low with 0% interest, almost 0% interest. Most bonds are not paying that much. And so that can cause you to take undue risk with your portfolio when you're chasing one part of the overall equation. The last approach, I would say, is kind of like a bucket strategy. And we've all heard of some version of the bucket strategy. The simplest is you have two buckets, one with safe investments for the next 1 to 3 years, and a second bucket with more aggressive investments. And those more aggressive investments will backfill the other bucket, their safe bucket. And then whatever the dollar amount in there is, let's say you have 3 years. Well, at the end of the year, you see how much is in there after you've backfilled, and you divide it by 3 and say, all right, we're going to take this amount out for the time period. So you can see that all of these strategies, they have different constraints, right? You're going to have inflation eroding at your purchasing power if you take a fixed dollar amount out. You're going to have a disconnect between real life expenses and how much you can withdraw if you take a fixed percentage. If you take income only, interest and dividends, you're not going to really, your portfolio is going to shift dramatically, and you're going to take undue risk in your portfolio because you're focused on one part of the equation. And if you're doing the bucket strategy, that doesn't really replicate what you want to do in retirement, and it doesn't kind of follow your cash flow pattern. In our next video, I'm going to talk about what we do at Client First Capital, how we map out your cash flows, what we know to be true, meaning the first 10 years of retirement, you're healthy, you want to travel, you're going to have increased expenses in that period. So it's okay to withdraw from the principal during that time period. The next 10 to 20 years of retirement, you're going to find some stability and you're not going to withdraw as much as you did in the first 10 years. And then towards the end of life, you may need help. And there may be a long-term care cost associated, and we want to adjust for that. We're going to show our method of how we calculate that and everything else in the next video. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. Thank you.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Client First Capital LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Client First Capital LLC and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Client First Capital LLC unless a client service agreement is in place.